Hello and welcome to JavaScript Evangelist. In the last video, we learned how to load a user profile component and we connected it to our post service. In this video, we will learn how to architect the post pagination service in a correct way. So this video is a part of Learn Angular 4 step-by-step series. So I would recommend you to watch the previous videos to understand better. In the last video, we are fetching blog posts of a particular user. But if you look closely, we are also making multiple calls to fetch the user, which is bad. Also, our user profile component can be reduced further. So we can refactor this file and make it more readable. We'll be also modifying few things in our post service. Then we'll create another file called pagination service, which takes care of loading posts and remembering the user's key. Once we have the user key, we can store the blog posts into Rxjs Behaviour Subject to access the previous blog post data with ease. We'll also write next and previous post functions. So let's get started by modifying the post service TypeScript file. Inside our post service, we are going to modify find post by username. So instead of finding a post by username, we are going to make it read find post by user key. To fix it in a simple way that avoid making multiple requests to get a user, we are simply going to get its key. All right. So get post by username will be renamed to user key. So get post by user key, and over here also user key. Once we have the user key, we are going to pass it over here, and find post keys per user will also be modified. So instead of finding the user again to get the key, we can simply make use of this call, which is over here. We are getting Angular list post per user key. So we are getting a user key over here and simply share it over here, user key. And once we load the user key, we are getting all the keys of the blog post for that user key. Post per user node, we have all these keys. So this is a user key, and if you click on this, you get all the blog post keys. So that's what we are doing over here. Once we have that, we are mapping each key. And as you know, we had developed post service in one of the videos in the past. So make sure to watch that videos. All right, let's add the post pagination service now. I'm going to use Angular CLI. So the service name is going to be post pagination. ng generate service, and the service name is post pagination, but I want this service particularly inside shared folder, and inside shared folder we have a post folder, and post pagination service, and hit enter, and you can see the post pagination service gets created. All right, let's quickly check how the user profile is being used. So as you know, this function, this method is not available anymore. So we'll need to modify this. Basically, I'm going to refactor this entire file. But before doing that, we are going to add methods to our post pagination service. First of all, add few private variables which we are going to store in this post pagination service. All right, once we have all these private variables, I'm going to add the post service into the constructor. Of course, to make all the API calls to the Firebase, we have to load the service. So I'm going to load the service as private. So the first function which I'm going to write is get post. Get post will get me all the posts, particularly all the posts of a given user key. So once we are inside the user profile, once we fetch this user, we are going to make a call to get post, but we are also going to specify a query with a limit of how many posts we want. So let's write a get post function. So get post function by default accepts a user key, and we are also going to pass a query object which is going to be Firebase list factory options. This function is going to return us an observable of posts. The simplest way to get all the blog posts is this dot post service dot get post by user key, and we are going to pass this user key and pass the query. So query will contain whether you want to limit the post to a certain key or limit the posts. We can return this function, but instead of returning this function as a post, we are going to subscribe and store the data. So we are going to particularly store all the blog posts received into an internal variable, and that is going to be an observable. So I'm going to remove this statement, and I'm going to subscribe over here. You'll soon see why I'm doing this. I'm also going to write one more private variable over here called POSTS SUBJECT, and this POSTS SUBJECT is going to be a new behavior object. So this behavior subject is provided to us by Rxjs. It needs an initial blog post. For now, I'm just going to pass an empty object. Then after this, I'm going to create a public posts observable which everyone outside this service will subscribe to. So we don't have to subscribe to all the other function, rather just subscribe to posts and get all the posts. So post is going to be an observable of type posts, and which is going to be this post subject, and which is going to be treated as an observable. Rather than passing an empty object over here, I think I'm going to create an initial post constant. I'll try to match the post model. So we have key, post title, post body, and date. So I'll just simply copy all this, paste it here, and quickly modify this. Alright, I have this init post object, and I'm going to pass it over here. You can even pass null also over here, but I prefer undefined. So this is how you create a behavior subject object in Rxjs. And so once we are inside the get post, assuming that we have the post and we are subscribing to this, we get the posts. Once we have the posts, there are a few things which we are going to do. One of the first things that we are going to do is, once we have subscribed to this post service to get the blog post, we are going to pass this data to the post observable. So to do that, we have to call this dot post subject dot next. So this next is an observable method, and we have to pass the posts, which eventually gets stored inside posts. Alright, so we have stored the post. Also, since we are inside this subscription, we have the information about the current blog post that which we received. Why not store the blog post keys? So this dot last post last post of the current set. So post, that is going to be an array, and I want the last post key. So post dot length -1 dot $key, which gets me the last post key. Also, it would be great if I save the first post key. So we have the get post public API method, which gets us all the blog posts unless you specify a query, which you have to. I can also write a public method over here called load first page, so which gets us first blog post of the user profile. So I can say first page, and I need the user key, and I'm going to pass it predefined queries over here. Also, since whenever we get the user key, we have to store the latest user key is equal to user key. I'm going to call this get post method over here. This dot get post. So I'm going to pass the user key, which is this one, and I'm going to pass the query object. The query object is going to be, so basically I'm going to specify that I want to limit whatever the data I get to a specific limit of posts. So I'm going to limit it to first post, and I'm going to use this post limit. Alright, let's utilize this method into our user profile. I'm going to clear everything from this page. Alright, the first thing which I'm going to do is load the user. So I need user's key. And I'm quickly going to make a call to the post pagination service. As you know, whenever we create a service, we have to add it to the ng module providers. But once you add the service to the ng module providers, it becomes globally available to all the components. But rather than making it global singleton, I want this service, post pagination service, to be available as a singleton only to this component. So I'm going to add the post pagination service under the providers of this component first. So post pagination service, I'm adding it over here. All right, I'll just bring it to the next line. So right now we have loaded the post pagination service as an exclusive provider under the user profile component. We have the post service, we have post pagination service. Inside ng on init of user profile, we are making a call to the get user by username. So we are reading the route params and we are getting the user. Once we have the user, we can subscribe to this user and make a call to the get post. Once I have this user, I'm going to make a call to get post, and which is this function over here, and I'm going to just pass the user key, which is over here. This get post internal user profile function is going to call to the post pagination APIs. So this dot post pagination service dot load first page, and we are going to pass the user key. So this is user.$key. We are storing the data which we received inside post pagination service as the post. So we need to subscribe to this post in order to get all the posts. So we already have the post as an observable. So all we are going to do is load and access the post observable from the post pagination service. And you can see post is available to us for subscription. And let's check it out if it works. All right, let's see what are the errors. I think you must have spotted this issue before only. So what the error says is, so post is an observable of post array, and we are just passing it as a single object. So we need to pass it an array of post. That's it. and the issue should be solved. And if you reload, okay, everything is working fine. But if you look at over here, we are still making the multiple calls to fetch the user. The problem is over here, so we are getting the user, basically this is another request and this is another request. So we want to tell our page, just count the subscriptions and make only one single combined request. And as we know, we have learned about publish replay in the past videos. And if you look at this now, we are only making one request to the user. We are using the user key to load the first page of blog post of that particular user. So the remaining functions are loadNext post and load previous post. I'm just quickly going to add the button over here called, okay, also I'm going to add this method into my user component. All right, going back to the post pagination service, which is over here, we have the load first page method. I'm going to add one more method over here called load next page, which eventually calls for this function again, this dot get post, and I'm going to modify the query. So we already have the key, since when we made this call to the load first page, we stored the user key into our internal private variable, which is at the top, and we are going to utilize that user key over here, user key, and we are going to pass the query object. So query is going to be, so since we need to load the next post page, so of course we have to utilize the start at and end at methods of the query. So we are first of all going to limit to first using the limit which we have, and I'm going to order my query by keys. So once we are ordering this by key, I'm going to tell it to start this query at this particular key and limit it to the limit. So I'm going to specify the start at key, this dot last post key. So we are going to load the next page from, so basically we have the first three blog posts, and I'm going to load the next page from this key, so 1, 2, 3. What you can do is you can also load 4 posts and hide the fourth one, and again load next 4 and hide the again fourth one. It's up to you, but for now I'm just going to load using the last post key. And let's implement this method now. It's simple. Go to user profile, this dot post pagination service dot load next page. That's it, simple as it. You just have to call to the API, and the API will take care of storing the post into this observable over here. And previous post is again going to be very simple. So going back to the post pagination, and I'm quickly going to add the new public API called load previous page, which makes a call to the post get post. We pass the user key, which is private, and we make a query. In the query object, instead of passing the start at key, we are passing the end at key. So we have first post key, and that's it. It's very simple now. Again, go back to the post pagination service and hit the copy paste button. That's it, and let's check it out if it's working fine. I'm going to hit the next post. We get the next post, and if I hit the previous post, I get the previous post. That's it, simple as that. So as we know, we are only making one call to get the user. We are storing the user key. We're also keeping track of the posts, blog posts which we receive using the behavior subject pattern in the Rxjs. That's it from this video. In the next video, we're going to learn about file-based authentication. So make sure to stay tuned and do subscribe to my channel. That would really help me to keep on adding more new videos every day. Thanks for watching. Over and out.